Hello, this is your host Lakota Ravoc, and welcome back to TIMBERBORN. We are on the main menu here for one major reason, because I got some ideas in my head the other night. Some weird reason I get crazy ideas just before I fall asleep, which keeps me up and keeps me from falling asleep. It's a cycle. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new map, and we're going to make a small map here, 64 by 64 map. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this terrain, and we're going to test out some theories with our water physics. So we want to take our current game, which is the Thousand Islands map, and we want to make it have a big waterfall on the outside, have everyone on top living up there, and have it nice and green. Well, I've got an idea already on what I'm doing, but some of the water physics aren't exactly working the way I want them to. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of change this little map here into terrain, and we're going to see how certain things are working, so that way we can adjust our plan for our beavers. The first thing I want to do is I want to do terrain absolute height. We're going to change our brush size to a 1. And what that does is it gives us a 1 square size brush. The bigger we make that, the larger the brush size. So we don't want to make that very big. We're going to adjust this brush height to a 0. So we can take this down right here, this outside edge, and put it down to the foundation. So we're going to just delete, whoopsie, I'm going to delete this outside edge around the entire map. If I can aim, I'm not very good with these kind of tools. I'm making canyons. Oh, that's a little bit easier. Actually, just drag it outside the edge. All right, so we've got that border that's going to give us that waterfall like it's going to do on our Thousand Island map. Now I'm going to bring our brush size height to its maximum, which is 16. I'm going to try and make a little perimeter on this edge right here. Like so. This is going to basically be like our wall on the outside of the map. It's going to contain all the water inside. I am terrible with brushes. I am not an artist. All right, so there is our box, basically. And go ahead and put some water sources in here. Just going to put them on this back wall right here. That should be more than enough. So with this, the water should just fill this up and then pour over the top outside. So this is kind of the effect that we want to get. So let's take a quick look at that. Filling up in triple time there. And that's kind of why I wanted to use a small map. A 64 by 64 is still pretty big, but it should fill up a lot quicker. All right, so the water's nearing the top and should do what we expect. And it should just overflow and let the water kind of spill over the top. Just like that. So that would be what would happen when we actually get this thing to work. Now I noticed about 3 or 4 tiles down that everything turned green on top because it was touching actual land. So one of the things we could do is that we could make earthen pillars instead of platforms, and that would cause the surrounding tiles of earth to actually connect, but we would have to make a lot of these earth pillars because it only spreads out about 3 tiles from the center point. So you wouldn't be able to get a lot of stability from doing this. I'm going to make a little center point here for some beavers. So we're just going to make a big massive land in the center here. So what I might have to do is bring this down 1 tile around the outside edge. And just drop a starting location right roughly about here. It all works out fine, wherever it is, right there. Okay, so this is our tester map. I can get into the developer tools. I'll just build everything without the need of actual beavers. All right, here we are back in what I call the pond, and we are on developer mode. That means we can actually spawn anything in that we need to and completely build things immediately. Because the first thing I want to do is I want to put down...
Nope.
I think I need a bunch of science. Let's just add a bunch of science and unlock a bunch of different things. I think 100,000 science should be enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a border around this like we did in the Thousand Islands map, and we're going to fill it with terrain. And the handy dandy developer tools, they get built instantly. Like so. So this is what we have currently on our Thousand Islands map. We have these overhangs which are supporting the terrain up above it. The water goes through, but doesn't get stopped, so it just goes over the very lip. This is a flaw in our design. One of the things I thought about doing was putting dam pieces around the outside edge instead to see if it raised that water level up to the point where it's actually going to make the top green. Because currently, as it is, nothing will get green. I'm going to go ahead and change all this real quick. So the idea being that if we have the same level as before, right? Put one extra layer here, that the terrain above should get wet from the water below. And you can put terrain blocks on top of the dams. So this should all effectively get wet because the water level will raise with the dam pieces. And I just realized I did all that wrong. I forgot to instantly build everything. Don't worry, it'll just be a minute. All right, now that everything's built, we have the terrain on top of the overhangs that are on the platforms. That is also supported by dam pieces, which should raise the water level up, hopefully making this green. Let's see if that works. But so far from what I've seen, it actually has to physically touch terrain for the area to get green. All right, so water is now pouring out of the dam pieces, but it's not high enough to actually touch the terrain on top of it. So this is a problem. Realizing now I probably could have made a smaller map. You can see here the water level is really close, but it's not touching, so that makes it a problem. The dam pieces have a maximum height of about 70 on the height limit before they start pouring out. So they don't reach enough height. All right, time for idea number 2. Replacing all those 1x6 overhangs with 1x2 overhangs, taking all the overhangs I've already got set up, dropping them down one level, and putting terrain at the same level as the overhangs above. Basically creating the overhangs here as pathways and leaving a gap behind the terrain as a way for the water to escape. I don't know if it'll work in this experiment with just a small slab of terrain that I've got here, but we're going to give it a shot. I might need to cap the whole area for it to work, but we'll see how this goes. All right, that instantly went green. So the terrain is low enough in the water that it's actually touching, but it lets the water escape out of our little holes on the outside where all the platforms are, thus giving us our waterfall effect. We could further enhance this by doing the same thing, by maybe utilizing the dam pieces, raising the water level up, pressurizing it, and causing the dam pieces to actually expel the water at a higher level. The dam pieces would be here. We would not be able to put terrain on the very outside inner edge right here. So it would be dam pieces on the very outside, and then probably overhangs with impermeable floors on the inner border, kind of basically making a border out of our overhangs, and then the terrain on the inside, slightly lowering our area space, but we have a 256 by 256 map to deal with. We've got a lot of work ahead of us anyways, so losing a little bit, not a big deal. Not a big deal. So this is feasibly a better option. It's going to take a lot more work because I'm going to have to basically backtrack and load up an older save so I can redo this. This would probably work out better. That means I'd have to lower every one of the platforms that I've designed in Thousand Islands. But the pressure would make the water expel out of all the orifices here on the outside of the map and keep our terrain green. We just have like a boardwalk on the outside. Not a terrible thing, just not as attractive. I mean, we could spruce it up with some terrain on the outside on top of it, making a little lip, but I don't really care for that. So this might be our better option. This is 100% effective. It will work. We just lose the terrain on the outside edge. And that just may be what it is. Oh yeah, I still have effects on, so I have a drought going on right now. Which if I did the dam pieces would help with that because it would keep the water a little bit higher during a drought. Honestly, I'm not too concerned about it right now. But this is definitely more feasible. This would work out a lot better. So maybe dam pieces and then that boardwalk on the outside edge. or pathway with the impermeable floors. So that way, if it does happen to over spill, it's pressurized and it won't go anywhere. This might be the trick. This might be exactly what we need to do. So far, the most promising solution. I have one more idea in my mind before I finish this. And we're going to go ahead and test that out right now. We're going to just speed through this drought real quick. Now, this idea is a little more involved. It's a little trickier. With this, we lay down floodgates that are taller on the bordering edge. So technically this becomes a walkway, but at the same time, nobody can actually use it. It makes it a little more attractive. So the theory is if this is bordering the entire outside edge that's taller, we should be able to get that pressure up and it would flow out the top edge instead of the bottom, instead of down here. So technically we wouldn't even need our overhangs for this. We would just need an edge of dirt. And it will let the water overflow over the top edge, still creating that land bridge and letting the water kind of fill the area. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but the ideas in my head, we're just gonna have to put it into practice. So visually, this is the idea. Have some kind of barrier on the outside that lets water flow through without using the overhangs, letting it kind of cascade over, leaving a gap around the outside edge so that water can flow freely, raise up, touch the ground, and still pour out. This is definitely the most complicated, but the most practical. Let's just set these at like 50 around the entire thing and see how this works. And I expect this is going to be 100% results because the water will permeate the overhangs through these holes and it'll just flow freely out. And the water is permeating the area, making a border of water around it. At the same time, the water is touching the ground from below, so it's going to basically keep everything green. And then we get our waterfall. Unfortunately, the corners aren't going to get as much pressure, and I definitely don't have enough water sources for this much area space. So it's not getting the kind of pressure that it's going to need. Dam pieces, on the other hand, might work better. Visually, they'll look a little nicer, and we can actually put them into the ground themselves and kind of blend it in with the rest of it. But this is probably going to be the most effective method. I can even adjust the height so that way it's filling up that little channel on the outside. Eventually, when the pressure normalizes, it should come out all the different areas so that we'll get that spectacular waterfall effect. But this is definitely the most effective, being also the most costly. So if I have enough terrain over the whole thing, there's going to be pressure on the water coming up, and it's going to push outside the map a little easier. This is probably the method I'm going to go with. It seems to work the best. And the beavers will just be trapped in a little fence. So I think this is going to be what we might go with. I'm going to research the third method a little bit more, but this is definitely 100% effective. Keeps the water pressure up, puts a little border on the outside edge, which I don't really like, but it works. And the reason more water is escaping this part than any other part of the map is because that's where the water sources are. And like I said before, water finds the fastest way to get out. So I don't have my little channel dam like I usually have. So there's no way to control that water. It's just going to go out to the nearest point that it can find. So we may not get as spectacular of a waterfall effect around the entire map because it is huge and it only has about 35 water resources. But it is something that will work. I'm hoping when it's covered over entirely that it will just force that water out. But yeah, this is fun with water physics. We definitely figured out a couple of methods that are going to work. So we're just going to leave it there. This is going to be Lakota Ravoc signing off. Thank you for coming down and watching. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you like this video. We'll see you in Thousand Islands on the next one. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye. What was that? You're welcome, buddy.